Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. Doug here with 2 Plus Tough, and today I want to talk a little bit more about a game that I've been falling in love with, and that is Marcher Empires at War by Golden Dragon Games. This is a project that's still in development. There's going to be a Kickstarter coming out soon, but I have been intently fixated on this ever since I met this crew at Adepticon last year. The gameplay is refreshing, it's unique. I was looking for an alternate history kind of setting that wasn't like too grim dark, that makes you just kind of want to not go outside and never see the sun again. This is a much more fun, engaging, and dynamic kind of setting. Now, I learned that afterwards, okay? Because when I was at Adepticon and they were walking through the rules with me and saying, like, this is what makes this game different, that's where I got excited, right? That's kind of where I got my first taste of being hooked. Things like engineers being able to construct things on the battlefield for your infantry to hide behind, building and terrain being destroyed, exploding, that kind of stuff. That's what I'm here for in a miniatures game. Not to mention weird tanks, big mechs, flying machines, all that kind of stuff. And so in this video, we're going to talk a little bit more about Marcher, what makes it unique, and basically how to get into the game and why you might want to. So it's not going to be like an in-depth play-by-play with the rules or anything like that. This is a much more 30,000 foot view kind of introduction to Marcher as a game system, and then I will later on have a battle report and that kind of thing going through the minutia of the rules once I get my second army in. It's going to be US versus Russians. It's going to be great. So I'll explain what attracted me to Marcher, how to get started in it, and at the end, I'll load you up with links and resources to get you going yourself. So part one, what is Marcher Empires at War? Well, it is a skirmish level diesel punk war game, right? Think World War I or interwar era tech mashed together with weird science and strange creatures and stuff like that. You're commanding a force of alternate timeline factions. They bear a lot of resemblance to our modern world, but that world developed quite differently. And they are all feuding over control of a fractured, war-torn Earth. I have a full lore video kind of introducing the setting. I will link that in the description down below for you. But as far as the nitty-gritty goes, Marcher plays on a 4x4 table. You can go smaller, of course. I think the general point size of a game is 2,000. My little skirmish forces here are at 750, which is a good spread of models. And what really sets it apart is the tone, as I've mentioned. You've got trench warfare, walking battle tanks, occult units, cavalry, gas masks. It's gritty, it's grounded, but it's also just weird enough to keep things like separated from real world history. It doesn't get too grim. Gameplay wise, it's pretty much on par with a lot of other miniature games, right? A full game, assuming everyone knows their rules, you're looking at about 2.5 hours of a full game. You've got alternating activations, suppression mechanics, ways that units can inherit each other. And one of the things I find interesting gameplay wise is it kind of flips the script on something, which is a unit has its save stat essentially be how easy it is to hit. So like a tank is very easy to hit because they're big, right? And they're slow and they're chonky. Whereas something that's light and fast will be very difficult to hit. And so their saving throw will be much higher. It makes it a very interesting dynamic because you need things that are going to deliver the pain where you need them to be, but also you can't ignore the fast, light things that are just hard to hit. Now, I want to approach how to get into this game if you're interested in a few different ways. I'll talk about the resources, links, website where you can learn all the stuff later on. But I'm essentially approaching this from two perspectives. One is if you are someone who enjoys historical games and you like every once in a while to try something weird. A weird history game is kind of what it's typically called, where it's an alternate timeline or some dark reimagining of an existing historical event. There's those folks who already have historical miniatures, and then on the other side is new hobbyists who, maybe you have a 3D printer and you're just looking at the swath of games out there because man, what Adepticon 2025 taught me is that indie games where you make your own miniatures with a 3D printer are in. So let's say you're one of those folks. How would you go about getting started? So let's tackle them one at a time. For the existing hobbyist, it's actually much easier. If you have any army that existed in World War I or World War II for any of those kinds of historical games, you probably have most of a Marcher army already. A lot of the visual aesthetics kind of build upon existing historical ones from that specific era. Technology advanced faster than culture, essentially, when it comes to design, visual interest, that kind of. So you have most of the troops. I bet a lot of your specialty units that you might have representing specific historical things could double as engineers or whatever kind of specific unit you need. And really, if you already have say a World War II US Army, all you really need to do is splash in some really cool units. Now, for my personal Army Spotlight video I threw in some ideas for mechs. The US in particular, since we're going with that example, has a wide array of vehicles, flying, grounded. Some of them are underground for some of the factions, but what took my breath away when I first saw this game was the battle walkers. I love them. You can tell my first crush was Ripley inside of the cargo mover thing in Alien. If that's all you wanted to do, it's really simple for you to get into the game. If you head over to the Marcher website, they have a listing. If you have your own 3D printer, they have all the files to just drop those things into your lap. All the rules for Marcher are free. They're in support of the artists who create the model line. So like all the rules and stuff, that's what I'm saying. If you already have the models, you already have an army. So just grab some cool things to support Golden Dragon Games, splash them in, you're good to go. If you're brand new to miniature wargaming, or maybe you play existing ones, but you don't have a historical army, which is kind of where I was. I didn't, every once in a while I would take like a model here or there to paint up for like bolt action, but I usually gave those to friends so they could use them. I didn't have a historical army. Well, you could go one route, which is to just buy everything Golden Dragon Games. Head over to the My Mini Factory, load up on designs. If you don't have your own 3D printer, they have services. They'll print them for you at a good cost and ship them to you. If you're not interested in the 3D printing part, at least for the infantry models, you want to start with something a little different. Like I said, go check out historical ranges. From Perry Miniatures, those scales work really well here. Warlord Games makes a whole bunch of miniatures for their bolt action titles. They even have their own weird alternate history version of a game, but it's not out yet to my knowledge. But there are some interesting models there you can use. Like I said, the game exists to promote the artist side of things, so I would be remiss if I didn't say go support these artists, because they're incredible and they do great work. But as far as gameplay goes, it's easy to splash in things. And so let's pivot from talking about how to get started into what makes it fun, right? Now that we know how accessible the game is, why would I want to play? And a few things really stand out. One is a healthy amount of asymmetry. Each faction stands out in a number of ways. Each theater for each faction adds flavor and uniqueness to them. Now, having unique armies is not unique unto Marcher, so to speak, but the dynamic way that you build your list, that you're acquiring resources that your engineers can use in the field, means that different armies have access to different things to change the battle in the moment during the game. This also means that there are a lot of narrative duels. So if you wanted to say have like the siege of a city, right? You could have the defender have fewer points, but maybe a lot more of those requisition points to build defenses and stuff like that. There's levers you can pull because the mechanics of the game focus on things that a lot of other war games don't. The way you use terrain, the way you move through it, the way that you have mixed arms in terms of battle bots and infantry. Now, the visual identity is something that makes it fun regardless, right? This blending of history and sci-fi together. It's kind of hard to ignore that is one of the coolest things out there. And the rules are also fairly lightweight. Every unit will have like its own full profile. You roll to hit based on how easy the target is to hit. So big, slow things are easy to hit. Small, fast little things are hard to hit. Once you hit, then you assess damage based on the strength of the weapons that you're firing into their target. And there's a few keywords and that kind of thing that make you more effective at using them, but there's not like a bajillion. Some weapons might get a buff to damaging vehicles or something like that. So I guess what I'm saying is it has a unique visual identity with a lot of approachability when it comes to the rules. So the point is, and the emphasis is, get these cool models in your hand and start painting them up for a hobby project, and then every once in a while bust them out on the table. I believe this coming summer there's going to be their first official, or not their first, one of their next Kickstarters here. They've already had a successful one if I'm not mistaken, which always makes for the best way to get into a game, support the company, and get yourself a fantastic deal. Everything is STL based, so it's all 3D printable, so if you have one, you can feel like a kid in a candy store. And you can keep tabs on this channel. I will be announcing whenever their Kickstarter goes live, because I will be participating in it as well. Now, as far as getting started resources, if you were interested in Marcher, the first thing you can do is join their Discord. It is one of the best run and organized Discords I've been a part of for a smaller company. Jump in there. Everyone's super helpful. Share some pictures, ask some questions. You can go to their main website for cool pictures about, the fantasy art, as well as some wonderful photography art that's been taken of the miniatures, and learn a little bit more about Golden Dragon Games, see their full model line, all that kind of stuff. My personal suggestion is start at a list around like 750. That's what my army is. And it's enough for a few infantry and some unique pieces, unique pieces being the battle walkers for the US or whatever you wanted to do for the Russian forces or whatever. A unique model with some cool dudes splashed in. So that is Marcher Empires at War, a game that's fast, flexible, and totally dripping with diesel punk flavor. Whether you are converting up weird war machines for your historical infantry or diving in headfirst with printable walkers and weirdos, there is something here for just about every kind of wargame. I have links to all the things I mentioned in the description down below. Go check out their models and their Discord, and support creativity in our community because we can never get enough of it. Until next time, stay grimy and glorious, and I'll catch you in my next video.